Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Attic of Piedmont Trails. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Today is August the 22nd of 2021, and welcome to the Attic of Piedmont Trails and to our live stream. If you're joining in with the chat, say hi to me, tell me who you are, introduce yourself, join in with the chat. If you have questions, if you have comments, type them in and I'll be able to see them. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Hope everyone's had a great weekend so far. We're not done with our weekend yet. We still got some hours to go yet. I finally had completed an article for the website today. It has been weeks since I have actually written anything. It's like for several reasons. There was one reason because I ran out of time. The other reason is did not have time to research the material and in which I wanted to write about, and writer's block too. We all go through this. But yes, I was able to complete an article today, early North Carolina roads and through the Piedmont region. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the identification of some of these roads, some of the techniques that I have used all through the years in studying these roads. The article just briefly went through just a few of the early roads, and they're primarily dating from 1750 to before the American Revolutionary War, and it stems mainly from the migration patterns of thousands and thousands of families who migrated from the northern and middle colonies to North Carolina. And there were various reasons why they migrated. Each family was a little different from the other, and but they all had their important reasons of why they were moving. But one of the first things that I used many years ago, and when I stumbled across family stories of the Great Wagon Road, I would first go to maps, and some of these maps would be surveyors' maps, and I would begin to see differences between one surveyor versus another. And I began to question at an early age of when I started getting into these early roads. I began to question these surveyors and what techniques were they using in creating these maps, and why were there so much vast differences between, say, one, for instance, from Henry Moson in 1775 and John Collette in 1770. What characteristics were they using in describing these highways, these major roads, these settlements, and so forth? There were many, many differences between them. There are a lot of factors that come into play when you begin researching not only family history or your local area history or early roads, regardless of what it is. When you travel into the past, you have to stop and think about several factors that come into play. And this affects all of our subjects. This goes to, and I want to say this the right way, this goes into who you know, politics of the day, colonial social status, population and growth of a community, and future goals of that community. Prime example, I'll give you an example. If you go and research some of the early maps of Rowan County, you will discover really, really quick the differences between the county survey maps and, say, for instance, John Collette's map or Thomas Kitchen's map of the same exact area. And these maps that I'm mentioning to you, you can pull them all up online. You can either go to Library of Congress and pull them up online that way, or you can go to the North Carolina Art Division of Archives, and they have a link where you can go to North Carolina maps, and then you can pull them up that way. But you'll see a vast difference. Many of these communities, when they were still under British rule, they abided by British law. And in one instance with the Rowan County map, which Rowan County was a huge county during this time period, but it incorporated a road that was named King's Road. And in fact, if I'm remembering correctly, Christian Gottlieb Reuter, which was a surveyor for the Moravians, and I believe he arrived in 1762, 63. I know he surveyed a particular map of including Bethania and Bethabara during the year of 1766, which has always fascinated me because he has got an interesting road in that particular map called the King's Road. People have asked me all throughout years, is this the King's Highway? No, this is not the King's Highway that ran across the coastal areas of the British colonies from South Carolina on up to North Carolina and Virginia. The King's Highway followed the coastal areas all up along the eastern seaboard. And no, these roads are not the King's Highway, and they're not associated with the King's Highway in any way. What these roads are that they're referring to as the King's Road are each county, each parish who had an established courthouse by British law was conducted to have surveyed a road, a clear path to that courthouse. And that's what the King's Road is identifying here. That's what they are saying. So when you get into maps, look at all kinds of maps. Don't concentrate on just one or two maps of a specific area in which you're working in. Go to all kinds of sources for your maps, and you'll see a vast difference between one surveyor and another. There were political aspects in regards to creating these maps, and I want you to think about this. Our colonial ancestors were not even aware of these survey maps. Majority of them weren't. They never once used them to travel by. They probably never once even viewed them or even knew of their existence. So what was the purpose of these survey maps? It was for holding on to the British authority of the law at that time, understanding the boundaries of where they were, and also conducting business under British rule as well. That's what these survey maps were for. Now, once the United States was created after the American Revolutionary War, of course we had survey maps for each county, each state, and so forth, and we still create them today for various reasons. But back then, that's what the primary reasons were. So it depends on the location of where these maps were created and what the social status was in that particular area. Salisbury was growing at that time in Rowan County, so you can understand how certain roads would be highlighted in a particular surveyor's map. And Collette does this very well in his map in 1770 around the Salisbury area. However, the further north he goes and the further west and east that he goes, you will see him become more and more vague. But the truth is that there were more primary roads in this northern section than they were traveling into present-day Rowan County at that time. So I'll leave it at that and let you think about that. The other thing that I mentioned in there was population. And I asked a question within the article. I said, so who really does control these colonial roads? Well, it's the population in the end result. The population actually rules and controls the elements of these roads because the most popular routes are traveled by the majority of the population. And that's what controls the roads. And that proves the longevity of these early roads too. All right. Use a variety of sources to track your ancestors' footsteps through these old roads. And it's fun to do this. And don't just rely on maps. Use books, use tax records, use various different documents, printings, newspaper articles from that time period. Believe me, the roads were in the news. So land records. Use a variety of sources because you can, even church records too. You can obtain all kinds of information about the roads and the activity and the history of the community using different sources. Last week during the live stream, I touched base on the Baptist church records in Virginia, and I will have more information on the early churches in this area coming up on the website during the next several weeks. I will be including the Lutheran and German churches, and also some parish records that I ran across 12, 13 years ago now that I have in one of my filing cabinets sitting here right beside me. I will be sharing some of those records with you guys really soon on the website. So stay tuned for the Virginia church records. I wanted to talk a little bit too about online resources. This is, I want to say this the right way too. It's amazing to see how much the online resources for genealogy and family history has grown since the pandemic. And it's phenomenal to see the misinformation that is actually being posted out there. And I just want to put a beware sign up to don't rely solely on these online resources that are all of a sudden now just popping up out of everywhere. Concentrate and pay particular attention to the actual sources and have a backup plan to research them further before you take them as fact. I'm not going to name websites or anything like this, but it has been, during the past few months, it has been very noticeable of certain online resources that have just gone crazy. I don't know no other word to say it. They've just gone crazy with the information, and it's misinformation. So be careful with your online resources. Anybody and everybody can post anything pertaining to family history, genealogy, and they can personally, say, well, I found this and this and this, and I know it's true. But please, other family trees, research them. Just use them as clues and hints for your own family. I can't say that enough, especially right now from what all I've seen the past couple of weeks. If you hear Shelby as my little, he's my little doggy here I've got up here with me in the attic, and he's trying to talk to me as I'm talking to you guys. So forgive him for his wanting attention this evening. But next week, I'm going to be broadcasting a show on the podcast in regards to the Moravians arriving in North Carolina in their first 20 years. I've been working on this segment for the Moravians for quite a long time. And share with your friends, because this is going to be something that has never, to my knowledge, ever been discussed before about the Moravians in North Carolina. And I'm going to go in detail about the Moravian Land Company. I'm going to go in detail about their activities and their actions during the first 20 years of while they were here and settling and creating their communities in North Carolina. And if you have ancestors that were Moravian members, or if you had ancestors who associated and conducted business transactions or were friends with the Moravians, you will not want to miss this podcast. And I will be coming out with that by next Thursday, which is, I'm going to get my date. Will be the August 27th. No, 26th. August 26th. You will not want to, if you have any interest in the Moravian history, you will not want to miss this podcast. Okay, also got an announcement coming up for the live streams and moving forward. I'm going to change this format. And we've been given this out. We've always said, and right now I don't have any comments on here and I have no viewers, and that's fine. And like I said, weeks past, this was a trial effort, and we were trying something new with Piedmont Trails and sharing and getting the information out. That's all we're trying to do, is just share what I've learned and gained all through the years, and sharing my knowledge of all the old roads, the customs and traditions, the family surnames, um, of tens of thousands of families that I have gathered all through the years. And that's what my main focus is just sharing that information with all of you. However, the live streams and preparing for um, live sessions and segments that I feel would be interesting, for instance, like last week with the Baptist Church Records of Virginia, naming the history of and naming several of those churches and going to that much detail and sharing it with you all. It takes time to do that. And with these live streams going every weekend, we're going to change that to once a month. And we're going to announce it on several social media sites, which Piedmont Trails is on many different social media sites. So I'll be creating events for those, giving you a heads up of exactly what we'll be discussing, sharing with you during that live stream. And it will be prepared for those to last longer than what has normally been the norm for the live streams in the past 3 months. So I've been keeping it right at around 20 minutes. I think last weekend we went a little over. But in the future, be prepared for some of these live streams to go over from 30 minutes to an hour to get in all the presentation that I want to give. There are other reasons for why I'm doing this as well, and that's to give me more time with my projects. The Great Wagon Road project is going full steam ahead right now with all the discoveries that we have found, and it needs much more of my attention. And also the Colonial Indentured Servants project, a huge discovery yesterday, and it needs more of my attention as well. In fact, I've had to put off one of my projects for temporarily, the Yadkin Valley Railroad project, because of all the new discoveries that I have recently came across. So that definitely needs my attention. And not only that, but I have been asked to create presentations coming up this fall for certain genealogical and historical societies in North Carolina and Virginia. And I have decided that I'm going to go back to doing on-site live presentations. So that requires traveling and scheduling and other things going on, which also can contribute to my research as I'm traveling. So I'm trying to get all this worked out, and I'm not going to have quite time enough to do live streams every weekend. So I apologize for this. But as I stated, this was a trial effort, and we've tried it, and now we're going to move forward, I feel like, in the right direction in conducting these live streams. So it's going to be once a month. It will be the last Sunday of each month. So I will be back next weekend, next Sunday at 8 p.m. And then after that, it will be the last Sunday of September, which will be September 26th. And then I'll post these events on social media so that you can see exactly what I'll be discussing that particular weekend. Okay? I'm really involved with Genealogy Wise. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It is a social media platform that deals strictly with genealogy. And if you've not, I urge you to visit it. But I'm dealing more with them. And I'm also very active on History Hub. If you're not on a member as History Hub, this is also a social media group platform. It deals directly with the National Archives records, and I highly suggest that you check them out. I've been members of both of these social media sites for years now. So I'm going to be doing more events also with them online. Let's see. I'm just going through some of my notes to make sure that I didn't leave anything out. And I don't think that I did. So, and like I said, I'll be back next Sunday. What we're going to talk about next weekend, and I'm going to post this event, is that about the communities and some of the lesser known structures of dwellings and families who resided directly on the Great Wagon Road. So I'm going to share some of the research from the project concerning the Great Wagon Road and some of the families who lived directly on the Great Wagon Road. Okay. I did acquire a book, but I wanted to share a couple of books with you first. These are some of my favorites. This is The Great Wagon Road by Parker Rouse Jr. Had this book for a long, long time. You can see I've got some notes and highlights in there. I highly recommend this book if you're interested in the Southern migration during the 18th century. It goes. He did an excellent job in writing this book and giving a good scenario, not so much in details from point A to point B, but he does give you a good explanation of what the settlers endured and what types of routes they went and traveled. He doesn't get too detailed into the exact route, though, but he gives you a good idea of how they went. The other book, I've had this one for a very, very long time, and this is Carolina Cradle. It's the settlement of the Northwest Carolina frontier from 1747 to 1762, written by Robert W. Ramsey. It's one of my favorite books, and you can see I've had this for a very long time with some notes attached to it as well. Pages have been folded. I've had this book for over 20 years, a long time. Excellent book for early North Carolina families and early settlements, and even goes into detail in some of the roads. The new book that I have that I acquired this past week is a book that I have actually checked out in the libraries several times all through the years. It was first published in 1981 by Cambridge University Press, and it goes into detail about the statistics, the actual numbers of the white colonial indentured servants. And the name of this book is called White Servitude in Colonial America. It's by David Gallison. It's a very excellent book. I've read it many, many times, but now I don't have to loan it from the library anymore. I now actually have my own copy. And I got this this past week. Excellent book for statistics and other resources as well on that subject. Okay, I'm going to end it right here, you guys, and I don't see any comments or questions, so I appreciate those of you who have joined me this evening, and I wish you well with your research in the upcoming week. As I stated, I will be back next Sunday at 8 p.m., and I'll be discussing some of the family surnames who settled along the Great Wagon Road, the actual settled along the road itself, and this will be coming from the research project. Until then, I hope you have a great week and enjoy your journey to the past, and God bless.